Hello everyone, welcome back to E-commerce AI, the Revenue Revolution. Today we are joined by a very special guest, our Executive Vice President of Product and Strategy, John Murcott. John is here today with us to discuss our exciting new release, Athena. The latest update from HawkSearch features seamless smart search, Gen AI-powered smart responses, and best of yet, they're going to go into detail on how Athena was built with Gen AI and how they use RAG. This new release provides concise summaries of search results for quick insights and enhances the user experience and operational efficiency. He will be joining our CEO, Dr. Ari Khan, so I'll let you two take it away now.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thanks, Kristen.
Okay, well,
Hi, everybody.
Yes, hello, everyone. We just had this really big release, codenamed Zeus, and the code name really stuck. So that's a public name. And we released smart search and concept search and image search and some really important AI capabilities. And that was only a couple months ago.
I know.
Yeah. And we are already releasing Athena.
Yep.
The next version, which expands on some of those capabilities, but it also adds a number of new things. What are the highlights in Athena?
Yep, it does, and it's interesting because we've talked about this before, Ari, that AI is so broad.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just throw out, yeah, we're doing AI, and what exactly do you mean? And you really have to kind of break it down. So if I was going to break it down from where Zeus came from, there's this term RAG. I know you're familiar with it, but it talks about retrieval augmented generation. And the point is retrieval. It's search. So when we were talking before about image search, concept search, the vector databases, all those conversations we had, that is very powerful if you want to add those capabilities to your search. I already have keyword search. Now I want to add image search, and I'd also like to add concept search. So it's terrific for retrieval. But as Kristen said in the intro, and we were just talking about, there's a Gen AI aspect to search. And you might say, that doesn't seem to make any sense because we're just retrieving, right? It's search. But that's not always the case, and this is where Athena comes in. Because sometimes those results, regardless of how relevant they are, regardless of what your merchandising rules are or what have you, you may still want to work or form or summarize those results. So in that case, you take the results that came out of RAG, that retrieval, and you say with a prompt, we can get into details there, to say, hey, Gen AI, could you please take these results and in one use case, summarize it? Because I don't know if everyone wants to read all those results. They just want a summary. So that's where Athena is going, still leveraging all those capabilities around RAG, but now it can do additional creative things, maybe even start a conversation with you based on what came back from that search result.
Okay, all right. Okay, can you give us an example of where that might be used?
So it is a perfect use case, and it is a customer that does have that challenge where you're returning right results. We're not pointing at HawkSearch here, but we know that when people search for common search terms or others, we have some similar content that comes back. And the issue is, do we really expect the visitor to have to look at all of these results, that maybe this has a nugget here and that one has a nugget here? They're relatively similar in their results, but why do we have to make the person kind of go through and click to the detail page for each one of those? Could you summarize those first three results, the descriptions of those first three results, to get that response back? That's option number one. Option number two is, let's start a conversation here. So you searched for some type of, let's say, computer, and we come back with a whole bunch of different computers. It might make sense for the Gen AI to say back to you, is this computer for office work or for home use?
Okay, so now you have a dialogue with
Exactly. But you can't have a dialogue with RAG. It's like, I'm just giving you data back.
Yeah.
You searched in Japanese for this term, which is wonderful. That's all the magic of RAG. But now if I want to converse back, if I want to have a creative response, we've been using the term smart response.
Yeah.
So smart search is RAG. Smart response is, now I can take that information and present it back to you.
Okay, that's really important. So we've got smart response.
Yes.
We also have the summarization.
Yeah,
Is
that is the smart response. So a type of smart response would be a summarization. Another type of smart response would be a conversation. I'm going to ask you a question. And then you say, oh, it's for office use. That would be a hot link. You click on that. Now it's going to return the results. It remembers the previous dialogue and say, "What's your budget?" That type of thing. I'm continuing the conversation. But the system, the software needs the Gen AI capability to kind of analyze what the responses were and then figure out what question should I ask back.
Okay. So there are several companies that use HawkSearch to manage knowledge bases.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they'll go into a knowledge base and you'll have several articles and other pieces of information that are related to a searched for topic that needs to be researched. So is that an example of
perfect? No, that's exactly it. That summary, because and you probably noticed too, Bing does this now. Even Google, you search for a famous actor or something like that, you'll get a bunch of responses. You're going to get Wikipedia, you're going to get news sites and everything else. But then you'll see the summary or just kind of a high-level overview that's coming from the Gen AI, whether that's Google or Bing. Mm-hmm. We're doing the same thing, not for the whole internet, of course, for your company's website and the results that are coming back. And there's some important things to cover in that subject.
Okay. All right. So in summarization, so I've got, in this example, a knowledge base. Yes. I don't want to read all of those articles. I just want a summary of the top 3 articles or top 5 articles. I could read that summary.
Exactly.
And then click into the more detailed ones if I need to get into that level of detail.
Exactly.
Okay, what are some of the other details with respect to that summary that you mentioned?
So sometimes people get anxious about Gen AI because sometimes you go out there and you ask a question and you've kind of talked about this. It hallucinates. There is that anxiety.
Yeah.
So the good news for us is we're not going to the internet to try to answer that summary, as you were just saying, for the knowledge base. I'm talking about your content, meaning your company. So using summarization, I'm still working in the confines of what came back from RAG. I'm not in general saying, hey, internet, what do you, or ChatGPT, what do you think the right answer is to this question? No, we're staying in the confines of what came back from the search results. So yes, it's a different type of technology. Yes, it's a creative process as opposed to a retrieval process. But the confines are, I'm only asking you questions, to go back to the conversational example, I'm only asking you questions based on what we call facets, basically the hierarchy or the description of the content. I'm not just generally asking you a question. It's a question based on what our system understands about your data.
Right. Okay, great. So if I've got a website that sells, it's a nursery and it sells plants.
Yeah.
And I need to go to that knowledge base and ask about branches. Unlike ChatGPT, which is going out to the internet and branches a synonym that could be involved with all sorts of crazy stuff and they have nothing to do with trees.
Exactly.
Here we're going to restrict our response and our summary down to just the knowledge that's within that site and give you something that's relevant.
Exactly.
And then we also would give the links to be able to see the sources of data that produce that summary so that I could read the original text.
For sure. And the default, though, still is we still show the search results. So we're not saying we're replacing. If you were going to look at the most simplified view of a search page, you have your search bar, you have your facets, you have your content. Those all stay. What we're saying is we're adding, think of it like a component, we're adding a component above those results underneath the search bar that says, here's a smart response. You can still see all the other results there. And I know you're asking, could I put links inside that smart response? For sure. But the user experience stays the same. We're adding an additional component on that search page.
Now, we were just using a use case of a knowledge base.
Yeah.
Let's switch to e-commerce for a second.
Sure.
Okay. So if I have an automotive parts online store, and someone is searching for, I don't know, brakes.
Yeah.
Okay. Would you be able to create sort of a summary of the different brake kits and give them the options to click through and buy?
For sure. But the way to think of it, though, is typically when our customers, e-commerce in particular, are sending us data, they're certainly sending the description of the brake, the picture of the brake pad, the name of the brake, how much does it cost. Obviously, these are very critical pieces of information.
Yeah.
But they also have some metadata that's related to it, like category. So this is for this type of car, or it's for this type of engine, or I don't know much about cars, but you know what I'm saying. And our system typically has that type of metadata. We refer to them as facets as they are shown on the website itself. So in that case, what we do is we have the Gen AI look at the facets that are coming back and say, what's the best question to ask the person who asked the question, that the original query that returned that response, and say, what's an appropriate question to ask? And that's why it's important. The Gen AI isn't just generally saying like, oh, you have branches in your plant, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, we have a factory in New Jersey. Like, no, that's not what I meant. It's not that kind of branch. We're looking at the data that comes back. But the Gen AI is helping the visitor, the searcher, to say like, look, we know the types of questions people typically ask, and we know the types of facets people typically click on. Why don't I just jump right ahead and just ask you what's important to you? So I'm helping you in your search discovery.
Okay, that's the dialogue there, I think. No?
For sure.
Yeah. So if the product catalog, going back to automotive, has compatible parts,
yes,
for instance, would the Gen AI be able to say, okay, great, you searched for this brake pad, and here are the compatible additional parts that are necessary, and give you a summary of like, okay, great, got this brake pad, and got this part, and this part, and this part, and see the whole setup?
Yeah, it does understand those relationships. I would tell you, and this is where we're going to, Ari, so I do want to cover this part. We're referring to it as seamless search now, but also this idea of unified search to take advantage of both capabilities. And let's just spend a second talking about this. In the kind of classic search index world, even going to a relational database, which I know you're very familiar with, when there is a column that describes category or related ID, so like these are the IDs that are related, as you know, it's such a clear marker. Like I totally know that this part goes with this bundle, and that bundle has these other parts. Like that's a relational database. So the advantage we have is we can still take advantage of it because those are fields in the keyword aspect. So we can get the results, leverage the creativity and the RAG capabilities of concept search, but still look at the more relational, the more kind of old school relationships.
Yeah, from an AI perspective, I think of that as just unambiguous knowledge.
Yes.
Clear knowledge, and then you have fuzzy knowledge as well, which is less specific, but there you got specific known facts.
Yes. Now, there is a middle ground, and this is also something that we're working heavily on, and the acronym is NER. We live in a world with acronyms. They're all over the place. But within the Gen AI, now we're looking at that more kind of vague but very creative and expressive environment. It's named entity recognition. And in that case, it's almost like you're saying, just so you know, that's a field. So, yeah, I understand you're creative and you understand everything else, but when you get to things like, hey, show me all your products that are around $50. So you're being very explicit. Just so you know, I know the Gen AI, or I should say the RAG knows there's a value called $50, but I'm calling it out. That's price. And it understands under $50, around $50, those types of things. Now, would it have understood it anyway? Maybe in this way of understanding.
But you don't need to be fuzzy with a concrete field.
Exactly. So even on the AI side, the RAG side, it's getting similar, not exactly the same, but you're saying like, here's my corpus of all of the wonderful vectors and all the stuff that was generated by the LLM.
Yeah.
Now I'm going a little bit off the beaten path, but here's my sentence transformer. If you remember, you can query in Japanese and everything else sitting over here. So here's my corpus, and here's my sentence transformer. And by the way, here's my named entity recognition, just to make sure all these things. So I have my full creativity, I have different languages, and by the way, I'm calling out that's definitely price, or that definitely is an ID of
the color of a shirt, right? And that's the way a human would work, right? I mean, if you're saying I'd like a blue shirt, human knows that that's a sort of a named entity. That's a color.
You're not
shirts
saying
have,
I want a depressing shirt, like I have the blues. It's like no, not that blue.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears for a second because I kind of wanted to focus on the summary thing.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about the dialogue because I know the underlying technology is very similar, but they're very different. So with the dialogue, this allows you to refine and clarify. How does all of that work? What is the experience?
Yeah, and it is all to benefit the searcher. So kind of the whole point of all of this stuff is we're saying we used to grow up in a world with keywords. And great, there's always going to be keywords, we understand that, and we always grew up in a world where there's facets, and we kind of know that, and whatever, it's not going anywhere. But the whole point we're trying to do, especially as you kind of look, as we're progressing and where's all of this stuff going, it is more conversational. And if you're having a conversation with me because you're looking to buy a new car, you're not going to say, blue car 2015. And even if I kind of know you want to, I'm not going to respond with, okay, red, green, blue, orange, what are you talking? I'm going to ask you, like, what color do you want? That kind of thing. So the whole point of all of this kind of interaction is to make the experience more, you always say it like a salesperson in the store. Yeah. You don't tell the salesperson some keywords and they don't respond back to you with facets. It's an ongoing back and forth. So the underlying information is still critical. You still need all the descriptions. You still need all the facets. But now we could use this technology that makes that search interactive, more like you're talking to the salesperson in the brick and mortar store.
Yeah, I think that's really important. I do believe that culturally we have modified the way that we interact with computers to dumb it down to the restrictions that computers have. And we type in red, and then we can get more specific, red and large, But we wouldn't walk into a store, like you said, and say, I'd like red and large shirt. And then you get, so that dialogue, that conversation, that natural is the standard. I think that we quickly, matter of maybe a couple of years, literally, transform the way we behave to dumb it down for computers. Even more quickly will we transform the way we behave to undumb it down to the way that we speak with other people, and that this new mechanism for online shopping is going to come fast.
Totally. But here's where it's interesting, and I'm curious, Ari, what your thought is on this. So we have a customer, and they sell a lot of food. 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 So you search for pecans, and you may do it in crazy ways. We have the concept search and everything else, and no kidding around, it comes back with pecans. I'm telling you, it does, and it's wonderful. And then the site searcher, the visitor, says, can you give me a good recipe for pecan pie? So the problem is that is not in their index. Their index is, it costs this much, it weighs this much, like all of the information around the product pecans. Now, when I say Gen AI, as I was saying before, we're not going to ChatGPT, because if you ask ChatGPT right now, what's a good pecan pie recipe, it'll tell you. So we're not doing that now because of a little bit of concern. I don't think pecans have like your branch example, I don't think there's too much to worry about, but there's a little bit to worry about. When do you think, Ari, that kind of experience where you have hardcore data that is related to your business because you sell food, the pecans and such, but you know what, I would like to add that, but it's not part of your index. As HawkSearch sees the world, is that 5 years out, or
no. I think that's
where does it, where does it come together? How does it come together?
Well, I think it's technically capable right now, and RAG does do a lot of that for you. And as long as you can even have multiple embedding LLMs, you can merge those results technically today. I think that a lot of times you don't want to have a completely general LLM because you do get hallucinations and other things like that.
That's the concern.
Right? That's the concern. But to be able to create specialist LLMs, maybe we would start with specialists in law and specialists in medicine, some areas where there's a little bit more of a total addressable market than the pecan pie specialist.
Right.
But shopping is probably, or cooking is probably a pretty serious one, and to have a specialist that just ingests millions of recipes and cookbooks and so forth and can answer that is feasible. Today, I feel. And then you can even go further with restricting the results to only include recipes where you sell all the components.
So either the answer will be the ChatGPTs of the world, or whatever those models are, will allow you to be really explicit in your request to say just recipes. Don't go beyond recipes. Or we're going to, with the more general purpose requests, we're going to get better at prompts, and the prompt is going to say, when they ask for like a recipe, you better restrict your results to recipe. So I'm not sure if the prompts are going to have to get better and better, so you make sure you don't return the plant you have in New Jersey when you
and
branch.
RAG definitely allows you to just restrict your results to recipes, for instance. And that's one of the key things between retrieval augmentation is that you have a specific source. But I also think you want to restrict your results to recipes that only include ingredients that I,
for example,
sell.
Yeah. So that's where it's going to be interesting. So right now, our world, the HawkSearch world, the Zeus, and now Athena, is indeed the index, the actual data we're talking about here for your knowledge base or what have you. And some requests to the greater GPT world, but with real restrictions like, I already have the data, please summarize, or I know what the facets are, please ask a question in a creative way. What we don't want to do, and maybe just to make it absolutely clear why the Gen AI aspect is interesting, you don't want the response to come back in this conversation just to come back with red or blue. No, it's like, would you prefer to have red or blue? And the prompt could say, I want you to be polite. Maybe your site is a little bit more hip. And it's like, oh yeah, tell me what are you interested in? Like, that's where the Gen AI part comes in. It's a creative conversation based on a tone and a way of conversing, as opposed to, nope, I want to ask the entire internet or GPT world to answer this question, what should I put in the pecan pie?
Right. That's interesting.
Is your guess that the more general purpose LLMs out there are going to say, like, here's our recipe world, here's our this world, here's our that world, or like, no, our world is always going to be this, but just be really good the way you ask me. So when you ask about a plant and the branch off the plant, I don't think you mean like, oh, a manufacturing plant and I have an office in New Jersey. Where do you think the split will be?
I expect that there will be a whole market for specialist LLMs and for general LLMs, and that the general LLMs will have an ability to embed a specialist. So maybe I'm going to pay $500 a month for a general LLM, and I need a specialist on real estate law. And that costs a lot of money. That's $2,000 a month. But I'm going to buy it, and I'm going to tell my generalist to connect to that. If a real estate law question comes up, go to this specialist.
Yeah, for sure. And we are looking at those. There are these tools, as you said, and the world is going in that direction. But for now, when we say Gen AI, it's very much understanding the data that came back from RAG and starting there. Like, that's what we're using, and not the more general purpose. I think we can get to a point where it's a very trained model, and whether we bought it or we helped train it, like it's an LLM, but it's very much in this realm. It's recipes. It's whatever.
Right.
That's coming, but that's not where we are now. We're going in that direction.
So we spoke about going back to Athena. So we've spoken about conversational. We've spoken about summarization. What else?
So we have been using this, now we're getting into user experience, we have been using this concept of that seamless experience because we do love these features, the AI-based features, but as we were just saying before, we still like a lot of the keyword stuff. It's still there. So we're trying to leverage the best of both worlds. We kind of covered some of those scenarios, but sometimes it could just be, you know what, keyword search is better. It is. I'm not making fun of or criticizing the LLM. I'm just saying, you know what, that was better. So we're getting better at saying, like, you know what, we're going to leverage both, sort it that way, and that's what's going to come back with the results.
So is there a merging of results between a keyword and a concept?
The simple answer is yes, but if you're asking, like, well, what's next, John? And that is what we're calling Hermes. That's another one of the Greek gods. And that's where it really will just merge all of those results. What we're doing now, and I'm sorry I haven't brought it up yet, but it is an important concept. We have a lot of things like entitlements. Like when you log in, you get to see, items 1 through 15, but when I log in, I see items 1 through 20. Let's just say. Or your price is $10 and mine is $5.
Huge B2B requirement. Big time.
So the issue is, at some point, you do have to rely on those merchandising rules. So yes, we love the AI, yes, we love all these things, but there still is like another thing saying, whoa, that guy can't see this.
Yes.
So the seamless experience means I still have entitlements. I still have personalization. I still know, oh, you're in New York, that person's in Florida. With that stuff we still know, but we're leveraging the RAG part to kind of do the initial, like, oh, you want pecan, products. I'm still bringing it back, but yours is $5, mine is $10, that type of thing. So we're calling it seamless. You're still leveraging the merchandising rules, but you get the benefit of a more creative initial search to find all of the appropriate things.
Right.
And that's what we're calling seamless search.
So is seamless primarily focused on B2B? I mean, when I hear entitlements, I think B2B.
Yeah, but like personalization often is B2C. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, sure.
But it's often, you think more like, oh, you're a segment. You fit in a segment. You're going to see this list of products.
Okay.
I'm in a segment. I'm going to see this. We call that a visitor target, but it's a segment. And yes, our B2B customers use visitor targets, but typically it's a little more B2C. So it applies to both.
Applies to both.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So what's the timeline here?
Next week.
Yes. Well, no wiggle room now. It's like, okay, Wednesday it's out.
Oh, yeah. There's always the deployments and everything else just to get it out to all the servers. But yes.
So does everyone who owns Smart Search today, with the most recent Zeus release, do they get Athena for free? Is that a straight upgrade?
Yeah. So the way all of this works, look, there's going to be some customers who are still on keyword search. It's fine. And by the way, even if you have an index and you say, you know what, I would like to try the concept search, the image search, and kind of test it over here, it could still be in that same engine. It's just that when you're on the front end, I'm literally on your website and you are literally making the API call, you're just saying I'm passing in a keyword request.
Right.
So the index could still be sitting there waiting to go live, so to speak, but until you pass in a parameter, I'm getting a little detailed here, that says, no, this request is concept search. So it's like, oh, you want to use the vector, I'll search that way.
Interesting.
So it could still be there. So even if you're not using it yet and you haven't taken advantage of Zeus yet, it's still sitting there waiting for you to use it.
For you to turn it on, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's literally, you just turn it on.
And for a new customer, what is the effort of launching Athena on your website?
Yeah, and it's funny because internally, I know Ari, we're doing this quick start program. So Ari's, for people who don't know, Ari's challenge to everyone in the company, including Ari, was to create an account. Go in, have a site, play around, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And some of the more industrious people have said, but I want to turn this on for Smart Search. We were just starting with keyword just to get people going. And the answer to the question is, okay, go in and turn on that feature. This is what you were just saying. You have to turn on the feature. Then indicate what do you want to convert. It could very well be that some of the fields, like the SKU, that's probably a bad example, but like the unique identifier, I don't think the Smart Search needs to know what your unique identifier is. So anyway, you indicate, the description, the title, the things that make the most sense. You turn those on. The next time you reindex, it's sitting there. It's just sitting there ready to be queried.
So if I'm already running HawkSearch, I just specify which fields need to be
and the next
Smart
time
Search
you
enabled.
reindex, the next time you reindex, typically when you reindex, it just says, take the data, put it in the index. Now it's going to say, you have concept search. I'm going to grab those fields, I'm going to convert it to an embedding, and I'm going to store that in a vector field. So it takes a little more time when you do the indexing, because now you're doing 2, maybe 3 things, because you may have also created a vector for your image. So anyway, it does, put a little overhead. We have tools to make it go faster.
How often do people typically reindex?
The simple answer is every night.
Every night.
Typically, what people do is like every night I reindex, and then during the day I do a partial. That's typically when that price changed. That type of thing. And one thing that's great about HawkSearch is that can all be done by an API. And even if you add a new item, or you change the price, or maybe there's a new picture, it automatically will just update the index, obviously, the next time you search, but it'll regenerate the vector and it'll regenerate the concept in the image search.
Okay. All right. Cool. All right. Well, what do people have to do next?
Talk to your representative.
Get a demo, right?
Exactly.
We have several online. We do webinars regularly.
Yes.
And we've got videos of of Zeus. I don't know that there's anything in the Athena world that's out yet on YouTube, is there?
It's coming.
It's coming?
It'll be ready next week, yes.
Okay, cool. So YouTube, you would go to what, the HawkSearch?
Yeah, if you go to HawkSearch, there's a bunch of videos in there. And then for the people who really want to kind of get involved, go to our developer portal. So if you're on HawkSearch.com, go to resources, you'll see developer portal, and that goes into a little more detail. If you still like the high level, but you want to go deeper than just kind of the website, then you go to the user guide. And the user guide has videos and explains it a little higher level. The developer portal will go into a little more technical detail.
All right, everybody. Athena is out on Wednesday.
Yeah.
all of Bridgeline's customers will have access to Athena. And if you want to improve the revenue on your website with intelligent human style interactions that really understand your catalog, that can have a dialogue with you, that can summarize complex results, Bridgeline's the only guys that can help you. And we've got it down cold. Coming on Wednesday. Thank you.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you again, John and Ari. And just a reminder, this is being pre-recorded, so by the time you guys are all watching this and seeing this, Athena is live. So thank you guys again, and we'll see you next time.